Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, where you will find interesting guests and discussions about cutting-edge topics to assist you on your journey. The Quantum Guide Show is ideally suited to the newly awakened and for those who feel isolated by their newfound beliefs. The mind, body, and spirit thrive when we have a mission, and there is no greater mission than to become the change that we wish to see in the world. So hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels, and share this show with your friends. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 119, my returning guest is Aurora Seraphine. Aurora is the founder of Divine Alchemy Temple Arts, a spiritual healing arts practice offering numerous ways to heal and grow, both in person and remotely. She is an integrative holistic healing practitioner, unifying many modalities and sacred traditions. With a lifelong sensitivity to energy and the other realms, Aurora naturally gravitated to the healing arts. In 2007, she co-founded a healing, training, and events center for subtle energy practices and paradigm-busting gatherings. She is an essential oil alchemist, massage and body worker, intuitive healer, and advanced energy worker. Aurora is also a hypnotist, conscious musician, deep trance sound healer, and vocal alchemist. In 2013, she developed a sound healing technique called sonoluminous divine entrainment, designed to support people in accessing specific brainwave states through frequency and guiding them to source-generated healing by creating new neural pathways. Aurora is also a writer, speaker, mama of two, and an advocate for an organic, high-vibe living and spirit-directed pregnancy and birth. She is an avid researcher of ancient texts and traditions and loves bridging the worlds of science and spirituality through the quantum. It is Aurora's commitment to align with the inner divine to support herself and others in becoming the most tuned in, radiant versions of themselves, awakened to the reality of heaven on earth. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about food, but we're also going to talk about bio-individuality. Hi, Aurora. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. How you doing?
Hi, Karen. I'm doing really good. I'm really excited. There's a big plot twist that we've been discussing.
There sure is. And, you know, I've always sort of felt in tune with you. And it seems that those of us who are very, very sensitive spiritually, we seem to be going through some shifts right now. And I never saw the way I'm eating right now. I never saw it coming. I just never saw it coming. So before I get carried away, I want you to talk a little bit about your food journey. How has it gone? What did you try? What worked? What didn't work? And what led you to what you're doing right now?
Oof. Okay. So we talked a bit about this in our last episode, but I'll just revisit that. So to begin with, I think we talked about certain health issues. I know when I was a child, I had a lot of digestive issues. And, the thing is that even what is promoted as health food, especially 20, 30 years ago, it's total garbage, 100% garbage. Like, it's not even real food. It's like a food-like product.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no wonder that kids were dealing with so much mucus overload, so much inflammation, so much constant, chronic issues and illness showing up in so many different ways. And I just can remember as a child constantly feeling like upset, like waking up and my stomach was hurting first thing in the morning. We're just taught backwards from the ground up. I mean, look at the food pyramid, right? Like, it's completely backwards. And another thing is, I think that I won't go into the big, full-blown conversation, but I think, certain injections, right, are also very contraindicated completely, right? But then how it goes to affect people later on in their life. And it completely affects our gut health, our immune system, all of that. And then we are left trying to pick up the pieces, trying to figure out and, reverse engineer our body from the inside out. How do I live with myself? How do I eat in a way that is not only satiating and filling my body and its nutritional needs, but also giving my body what it needs to be hydrated, to not feel overwhelmed, to not get bloated and feel bogged down, and to be able to process everything and assimilate things properly. That's huge.
Yeah,
Because
what good is it if you're not digesting it? I didn't know that you're not supposed to notice your dinner in your poop. I didn't know that. I thought everybody had their dinner in their poop. Oh, all the vegetables, nothing was digested. Nothing was digested. What the heck? Sorry if it's TMI, folks, but this is probably going to be a lot of TMI on this show because we're talking about body functions and digestion, and the poop is a part of the package, hey?
Poop is part of the process. Exactly. So as I got a little bit older, I mean, I started studying nutrition pretty early on. And my mom for the time that I was growing up was considered a health nut. And so we ate lots of, fruits and vegetables, meat, potatoes, like what people would consider like whole foods, but then there was lots of other stuff that made its way in there, right? But as far as like home cooked meals, she was making most of our meals all the time. And it wasn't until I was in my early teens that it had gotten so bad that it started turning me just because of the digestive upset, mostly, and also paired with body image stuff, to some eating disorders, because it did not feel good for me to even have food in my body. It was like I would eat something and immediately I would just feel sick. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. How can I fix this? So I started studying nutrition. And, during that time, it was just starting to become popular in the kind of whole foods conversation and nutrition conversation about the plant-based diet being a way to heal the body, a way to eliminate digestive distress and to flood the body with nutrition. And so I'm like, fine, I'm on board. I quit eating meat. I didn't throw out dairy when I first started. It was probably like 5 years before I realized, oh, dairy's actually really messing me up too. So over the years, it was really a process of further and further refinement. But the thing is that the more I was refining, the more, and it didn't bother me really until it got to the point where I realized I'm only eating like a handful of foods because I had eliminated so much that, I just had like, salad, I would eat fish, and then some fruits and vegetables occasionally on my salad, but even like eventually getting on board with the ketogenic diet, I felt in some ways my body was starving for fruit. So, but I had gone probably 2 or 3 years strict keto. And at first it seemed to help, but then inflammation started to come back again. And I started to have heart issues, palpitations, arrhythmia, different stuff like that. And I'm like, this stuff doesn't come out of nowhere. I've spent the better part of 20 plus years on a plant-based diet with little intermittent like exceptions. One is during my pregnancies, I integrated a little bit of meat, but even my first pregnancy, I didn't even integrate the meat until I was 6 months along. And that's only because I was traveling at the time and someone had made something and offered it to me and I wasn't going to be a rude guest, And so I was like, okay, I didn't want to do that because at that point it had been 15 years since I had touched meat. But then I did it and I realized in that moment, I was like, whoa, like I felt this sort of like nourishment come over me that I hadn't felt in a really long time. And that
Yeah.
was from turkey. So
Yeah.
I'm like, if that can happen, what else is possible? But, but I kind of kept it at bay. And even, I mean, the diligence that I've had with this, refinement process, as I've called it, of trying to just be as health conscious as possible, because I just want to feel better. I think we all
Yeah.
just want to feel good. We
Yeah.
want to feel healthy. We want to feel fit. We want to feel like, we can eat something and not feel like we've gained 10 pounds from one meal because we're bloated so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so puffy all the time. And I just had so much internal inflammation and
Mm-hmm.
this heart issue that had come up over the past 5 years that seemed like it kind of came out of left field. But when you're inundated with the stressors of daily lives, you have environmental toxins, and then you're eating incorrectly because we're taught incorrectly, it's bound to happen at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had come to a point where, I was actually getting ready to do another fast, and I was planning on just doing a juice fast. And I'm like, I'm just going to do a juice fast, and I'm going to do a super extended juice fast for as long as I possibly can until I feel like I've healed my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my plan. And somehow, and I've heard of all kinds of different diets, I've studied them, and I'd heard of the carnivore diet, but it didn't appeal to me in any way. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoever decided that this is a thing is out of their flipping minds.
Yeah. That's what I thought too. Yeah.
How can you eat only meat and think that you're going to get what you need? You're not going to get the dietary fiber, blah, blah. I had all of these
Yeah.
misnomers floating around in my brain, so I didn't give it enough research and study. So something comes into my world just a few weeks ago, and this is hilarious that you and I are coinciding on this.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And it was an interview with a guy that was talking about how he had found this doctor and all of these interviews with this doctor, and that he was learning more about the carnivore diet. And he's like, I'm going to give it a try. So imagine me listening to this being like, all right. Here's the thing, though, is that I'm the kind of person that, while I am like, I'm strong-willed and opinionated in some ways, I'm still very open-minded.
Yes.
And I never want to shut out something that could potentially be beneficial to myself or humankind.
Yep.
So this information comes into my field, and I'm like reluctantly listening to it. And the more I'm listening to it and the more points this guy's going through, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Why have I not considered this before?
Mm-hmm.
So I start diving down the rabbit hole, and I start listening to more interviews. I start doing more research for myself, and I'm realizing that all of these things that we have sensitivity to as human beings, like phytic acid, like lectins, and then you were talking about,
Oxalates.
yes.
Yeah. And then there's the whole FODMAPs thing. And then it gets worse. But before we get any more into this conversation, I just want to put it out there that neither Aurora or I are doctors or medical professionals. We're talking about our own experiences, what we've been through, what we've learned. And if you can glean anything beneficial for yourself from this, great. But please just take it as is, as information only, and not as any kind of medical advice. I think that's really, really important. Now that I've said that, I wanted, sorry, am I interrupting you too early, or can I add another piece to the puzzle?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I had a very similar thing. I've had all kinds of digestive issues. I've also had some very badly botched surgeries on my digestive system. And I thought it was because of all that I was so sensitive, but I'm finding out more and more people, interestingly, people who are amazingly sane, grounded, spiritual people, not nutcases, coming out with their stories on how they lost 150 pounds, 200 pounds. Like Kelly Hogan is a really good example of that. She's been like 14 years on carnivore. Dr. Chaffee, check out Dr. Chaffee, because he interviews other doctors and specialists and scientists, and they're all comparing notes and coming to the same conclusion. But there's one thing too that I really, really want to stress, and I hope I don't get kicked off YouTube for this, but I have seen some recent documentation that, you know, the bad pokey poke, it's been given to the animals and is also being sprayed on all the vegetables and is in all the in the chemtrails. And so what's happened is we can spend a fortune on these beautiful organic vegetables. What we don't know is they've all been compromised, and they all have the same technology in it, which to me is really scary. And I found out about that about 2 weeks after I switched to carnivore. But me, like you, I just have tried everything, and I have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and I have, you know, headaches and depression and anxiety and all these things. Well, where do they come from? I'm meditating, I'm eating right. Well, I have found out that just about everything we're told is backwards, almost everything. And if that's true, maybe the earth really is flat. Now, I'm not trying to sound like a nutcase. I'm just saying, right? We don't know. Everything we've been taught is backwards and to the detriment of our health. Why? Because then we become really good consumers. And that's the other thing about health food stores. Most health food stores in Canada, where I live, there's nothing but pills, cheap, synthetic vitamins, no food, no education on food. There's one health food store in all of Red Deer, Alberta, where I live, that offers a very small selection of so-called organic vegetables. So what are we supposed to do? What are we going to eat? Well, apparently, when we switched over to carnivore, and I recommend people do that slowly if they decide to do that. Not me. I'm an all or nothing girl, as I was telling Aurora ahead of time. Well, it turns out that I not only have a severe sensitivity to lectins, but also oxalates. And the big difference is that lectins you can cook and soak out of your foods, but you can't do that with oxalates. They're in there, and then they're in your body. And then they are very often, from what I've learned and from what I understand, that they form these sharp crystals like glass. And they go into our connective tissue, and they go into our joints, and they go into our brain, and they go into different parts of our body, and they accumulate. So, you know, when you have half a cup of spinach, that is more than and I'm talking raw spinach, not cooked. That's more than what you can tolerate for most people in a day. And I was putting handfuls of this into my smoothies and kale and all these things. And I'm going, well, no wonder. And then I found out the really bad news is it takes up to 10 years for your body to clear it. So when you go on an oxalate or even a lectin-free diet, you go and you start migrating towards the carnivore, then the body starts to release these crystals and you get really sick. So I've had, at first, I felt great for a couple of weeks and then crashed. Exhausted, everything aches so bad, but I know what it is, and I'm willing to go through it in order to come out the other end. So I didn't mean to take over the conversation, Aurora. I just wanted to tell people that this is what happened to me. So finally, I was switching over to carnivore. I would say maybe mid-April, but I was still, you know, I'm going to use up my broccoli, and I'm going to, use up my mushrooms and all this kind of jazz. Because I'm like you, I always believed that the fruits and the vegetables were the gold standard for our diet. But the more I stuck to that, the sicker I got. And I was like you, Aurora. I was sick when I was a kid all the time. I had a fat belly, and my mother was always putting me on 500 calorie a day diets. I lived on less than 500 calories a day when I was growing up because she wanted me to lose weight, but we didn't realize it was a digestive issue. So she'd say, my brothers would come home from school, and they'd have, Nestle's Quick and powdered skim milk, gross, and peanut butter and jam sandwiches. And I was allowed to have an apple or a half an apple, and it always made me sick. Apples, and I love them, but they make me nothing sits right. So I went through my whole life actually using things to self-medicate, even just because I couldn't handle it. And so I don't want to say too much more about my own story, but it's just very interesting that Aurora and I come to the same sort of place around the same time, and we're embarking on this journey that's extreme. I don't even actually feel right recommending a carnivore diet because I'm just still, it goes so against my programming, but it is giving me results. So what I noticed within the first couple of days is my gut settled down. My gut settled down. I am having more problems because I'm clearing the oxalates. So, I'm going to go through that for a while. And I know that I'm willing to pay the price. But oh my gosh, I didn't know. And the other thing too is I'm not hungry all the time anymore. I'm eating one meal a day. That's all I need. I'm not hungry again till the next. I eat at noon. Well, today we have the show, so I ate a little bit earlier. And then that's it. I'm not hungry at night. No snacking. And I thought, oh my gosh, when I gave up caffeine and tea, and I love tea, I'm drinking tea all day long. I gave up all of that. So basically what I'm eating right now is meat, water, and salt. That's it. Now, and occasionally I'm eating some butter because I found out this is really cool, really cool. Okay, butter, cow's butter. And of course, grass-fed is better if you can get it, but it's like hugely expensive. It's $8 for half a pound, and so that'd be like 2 sticks for $8 if you're lucky. A lot of it's $12-15 for a half a brick of butter. I kid you not. But I don't spend money at restaurants and movies, so I spend it on my butter. But anyway, what I found, there's a scientist and an author named Elizabeth Bright. I highly recommend her book. It's an easy read, although it's very technical in the beginning because it gives you the history of the medical industry around food, which is really good to know. But so she says in there that for all women, not just postmenopausal women, we should be eating a stick of butter a day because that's how much cholesterol it takes for us to get all the proper hormones and everything sorted out inside. But the thing that's so cool is I found out that butter is a completely natural opiate. It's a completely natural opiate. So when you start eating butter, if you like butter, that's great. If you don't, it's kind of hard to take. I keep it in the fridge and then I just shave off pieces. When I started eating butter, I went completely calm. I had no anxiety. I had no depression. I had nothing. It was just smooth sailing. And I've never had that before. It also shuts off your appetite. And so I would never in a million years, a year or 2 years ago, recommend anybody eat butter. And I can't do dairy, so I have to limit my butter. I guess I could switch to ghee, which would be better. But it works the same way as an opiate does. So if you eat too much, you'll get constipated, the same as if you were taking fentanyls or oxycodons or anything like that. So I'm telling you, it's this is the new mother's little helper, is to eat butter. And if you eat it before you go to bed, you sleep like a baby. And so I've been experimenting with butter and it's like so counterintuitive. But I'm at the point where I'm just eating it, and oh my gosh, if I hadn't experienced it, Aurora, I never would have believed it. So like I said, if you have trouble with dairy, well, butter is the least dairy of the dairy because it's the most
right.
fat.
Right. It's high fat. There's a low amount of protein, I believe, and it also butter and ghee. And I believe even possibly heavy cream don't have, I could be wrong about the heavy cream, but I know for sure butter and ghee are free from the typical lactose that bothers people.
And casein, which is the protein that's in milk and cheese.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm also can't do the casein. So I thought that was so interesting, but if I hadn't experienced it, Aurora, I never would have believed it. I never would have believed it. So here I am eating one meal a day, perfectly happy. I'm drinking lots of water. I'm flushing out my system. I salt my meat, but I also have a little tiny bit of salt, just lick it off my hand. I do take some liquid minerals because I want to keep my electrolytes and stuff up. And I do take a little bit of iodine. But I recommend everybody. You got someone who's PMSing or going through menopause or just the bitchy mama who can't handle because she's trying to work and look after kids, stick butter in her mouth. You will not believe the difference. I'm telling you, it's more sedative than even cannabis. It's really amazing. You don't get high or anything off butter, but it just I found right away. And so my body was telling me I needed that. I needed that.
Well,
My hormones
there's something else that I've heard too about butter, aside from it being like a natural opioid or what,
Yeah. It's
that
actually called, I think, Cara opioid or Cana. Cara starts with like 4 letters and then dash and then opiate and it's in butter. Yeah.
I think I also remember hearing something about it also stimulating dopamine.
Oh yeah. What it is butter provides all the precursors for
Yeah.
all your hormones, everything. And what our hormones do is they're produced as one kind of hormone, and then there's a cascade effect where then from that point the enzymes take over and turn it into another hormone. And when we've got enough of that, the enzymes come out, turn it into another kind of hormone. And this cascading effect gives us the dopamine, the serotonin, absolutely everything we need. The brain fog gone. Oh my goodness. I pay $1 million to get rid of my brain fog. Butter,
Oh
rid
yeah.
of my brain fog.
Well, I have to just like shout out to my dad right now because my dad has been doing intermittent fasting and following a lot of Dr. Berg's protocols and is a butter enthusiast. And he has been trying to drill into me through my veganism, through vegetarianism, through strict plant-based, through all my fasting and juice cleanses. He's like, you ought to be eating butter.
Really? Like a stick a day. Do you know how much that is? It's 1/4 cup. A stick a
That's
day.
a
You can eat
lot.
more. And I know you're kind of into health books. I really recommend Dr. Elizabeth Bright's book.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down.
And it's called Good Fats. I wish I'd brought it and then I could just show it to you. It's called Good Fats, Good Health from Good Fats, Good Health. And then at the bottom it says menopause. There's a picture of a hard-boiled egg cut in half on the front, just so you see 2 halves of a hard-boiled egg on the front of the book. Perfect. And anyway, and it's a fairly short read. I mean, I have trouble reading, and I was able to maybe it's because I switched my diet. I'm all of a sudden here I am reading books. Wow, I haven't read a book probably for 20 years because I just can't concentrate. I can't follow the lines across. Yeah. I'm now reading. Wow.
That's
so
amazing.
This is after less than about maybe 3 weeks of switching my diet. So, you know, I was all prepared to come on the show today because, you know, we planned it a while ago. We're going to talk about Eat the Rainbow. We're going to talk about, you know, all this stuff. But, you know, the other thing, too, is there was a huge I'm sorry for taking so much time. I'll try to be quick. There was a huge renaissance in natural health at the end of the 18th, beginning of the 19th century. So, you know, for instance, when I buy certain health products, I buy them Bragg's because they're from that era, right? And that's when they started getting into veganism and they started getting into enemas and they started getting into all this health stuff. Well, it turns out this globalization plan that I'm not going to say too much about has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So infiltration is something that they use. So they've been infiltrating the health food community. And then, of course, you know, we as humans, we like to take things and turn them into cults. We just seem to be driven that way. So a lot of these eating ways have very cult overtones to them, right? But the truth of the matter is we're all different. We're all different. And you only know by shutting off the mind and just listening to the body, because the body gets sick. It's telling us something. It's so important. Anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm sorry, Aurora. I just got on a roll and then I couldn't stop. So
no, not to worry. Not to worry. It's all, oh my gosh, everything you have to say is just like gold. So I appreciate every bit of it. One thing that I'll add to the butter as well is, you know, talk about healthy fats and the fact that we need healthy fats to assimilate whatever it is that we're eating, all the vitamins and minerals. So many are fat soluble. So if you don't have a good healthy fat in your world, in your diet, then you're not able to even assimilate. So part of like the whole carnivore lifestyle is making sure that you have enough healthy fat. So if it's not translating in the cuts of meat that you're getting, you better make sure that you have that source of good fat. And I still am a proponent of olive oil. I don't know how that fits into the equation yet. I'm still feeling into it, but
I'm still taking it too, actually. That's the only
yeah,
plant-based thing that I'm actually still taking. Yeah,
yeah,
funny that you mentioned that, and I'm doing that too. I'm doing about a
yeah.
tablespoon a day.
And it's funny that you mentioned the iodine, because I'm taking that as well with a bit of Celtic sea salt and lots of water. And like you said about not being hungry, this is a massive difference. I'm talking like I could eat a big salad, right? And that would be my main meal of the day. And I might have something later on in the day, but I was still feeling like snackish in between, because the thing, okay. So plants have all of these natural defense mechanisms, right? But we don't think about that as people. Somehow we think we're impervious to all the defense mechanisms. And in my mind and in my moral being, I would much rather be plant-based. Let me
Oh,
just
me
say
too.
that. I
Oh,
think
me too. And
most of us,
and it's depressing when you realize that you got to go off all the plants for a while. And I'm not
yeah,
saying forever, but
yeah,
until we get sorted out and find our equilibrium, for sure. And yeah, it's I don't know. But I'm doing it, and I'm not hungry like
yeah.
what you were saying. So that helps a lot.
For sure. It's made a huge difference for me so far, and it's only been a few weeks for me too. And
Mhm.
I just also find it really fascinating that you and I weren't having these conversations, and we come into the call today and we are
Mhm.
both on the same page. Neither of us knew.
No, I said to Aurora before the show, Aurora, I have to tell you something because I don't want to contradict what you're going to say on the show today. Because this is, she's my guest, and I honor you, Aurora, as an expert in your field, very much so. You really, clearly think through all the different paradigms that you participate in. I hope that didn't come out wrong. I didn't mean it to come out wrong.
No, I feel it. Thank
But
you.
anyway, and so she said, well, wait a minute. Same for me. And I was like, what? Like, oh my goodness. And it seems to be, I don't know what's happening. But I want to tell you another podcaster that I've been watching is Belle, the steak and butter girl. And she's a concert pianist. Like, you gotta have good brain and eye-hand coordination to be a concert pianist. Like, she's incredible.
Totally.
Right? And she's been doing it now for about 4 or 5 years. And all of them
Wow.
have hard bodies because that's just happens. That's what happens. And I
Yeah.
was like shocked. So anyway, and then of course I love Kelly Hogan. At first, when I saw her, I went, oh my God, not another airhead, skinny person who never eats, who claims they know it all. And then I watched her with an open mind, and I
I
went,
watched
oh
her
my
interview
God,
too.
what a beautiful soul. What a beautiful soul. And she's
Yeah.
lost like 140 pounds and kept it off now for, I don't know what, 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and then when and I don't know if you've tapped into Dr. Chafee, but oh my God, he's amazing. And he looks like a bodybuilder. He does work out a little bit, but he does not work out the way you would think. So,
Right. Right.
so now we're going to try this now on a 67-year-old woman here, postmenopausal, and we're going to just see. So I've lost about 25 pounds since January, but I've been really working on it. And I've also been going for long walks. My body needs long walks. It just does.
Yeah.
I don't feel good if I don't get out for a walk. So that's all I've been doing, and a little bit out in the garden. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. Continue where you left, if you can remember where we left off. It was really good. So you've ended up coming around to carnivore. You never thought in a million years you'd be carnivore, right?
Oh gosh, I mean, if someone would have told me this even a month ago, I would have said you're insane.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind. I'm
Yeah.
getting ready to do an extended juice fast, and you can't change my mind. I mean, seriously. And I think, as we develop spiritually, as we develop intuitively, I think there is a process of refinement where sometimes we have to go through letting go of a lot of density to experience clearing and clarity. But then there's a part of that circular process that comes back around that leads us back to things that we need that maybe we've been void of for a while. So, it's tricky,
It
right?
is.
But yeah.
You know what else is interesting that you and I are both very intuitive, and on a spiritual level, we find it quite easy to do lucid dreaming and things like that. But I'm wondering if it isn't our higher self directing us away from the vegetables because of what's being done to them. So I don't know if you know about the appeal, which is the new coating they're putting on
Yes.
them, and on and
Yes.
on and on. Well, food was already a horror story before, but here I was spending all this money on organic, and then someone who worked at an organic warehouse says, no, it's all crap. None of it is what we're told. It's all lies. And I went, oh my gosh, and you're spending all your money. I was spending more on food than I was on my rent and utilities because I was buying the best quality. So the other thing I wanted to say is people are worried about eating meat that maybe has gotten different kinds of injections. They've been injecting animals for years and years and years. And apparently the beast, its own liver and clearing system neutralizes a lot of that so that it's not actually present necessarily in the meat. However, grass-fed and grass-finished definitely has about 3 times the nutrition value. So, depending on how you look at it, if you don't have money to go and buy anything but a big ass pork belly, which actually I've done, I've went and bought super cheap. Oh my gosh. Like for 3 steaks is $100 here. But for a huge pork belly is like $35 here, and a pork belly will feed you for 2 weeks. So I'm wondering, sorry, I'm getting carried away. I'm wondering if, maybe our guides are maneuvering us into eating differently so that we can avoid maybe something that's potentially really harmful, because a lot of the fruits and vegetables are not the way they were 100 years ago already. Then there's the whole GMO thing. Then there's all the pesticides and all the herbicides. And then there's this new appeal stuff that they're spraying on everything. And then they're talking about tagging what they're spraying it with so that they can follow whether you're eating an orange or whether you're eating an apple, and when you ate it and all that. It's just kind of science fiction, dystopian future proportions. So maybe, I don't know. And besides, also my guides, I kind of hinted at that, or I had this sort of intuitive feeling that maybe we need to eat meat too while we still can get it, because of all the destroying of all the farms and everything. So I know I've covered a lot here, but I just wanted to touch on that. Sorry, I just kicked my screen here.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I think that's all really important. And, it was interesting. One of the pieces of information that I came across while I was studying deeper into this is that all of the nutrition that we think that we have to get from all of these plants, it's all available, that's being basically assimilated into the bodies of meat, right? And I hate to say that in a way that sounds degrading to the animal, and I promise you I do not mean it
I
with
know.
any kind of degradation. And I'm sure you and I are probably pretty similar in the way that we do honor the animal. And I think if we look at things from a greater perspective, I'm going to circle back around to what I was saying.
Sure.
But when we look at things from a bigger perspective and we say, okay, God, like, what is it that you want me to do? How do you want me to live? Like, what's the big picture here? And if God is directing us to do something that requires us to step outside of our comfort zone and do something a little bit different that we're not necessarily on board with, but we know that God is directing us for a reason, then I'm like, okay, I'm willing to listen. Like, I'm willing to listen and, tell me how you want me to do this. And what's been coming through for me is these messages basically of God just revealing to me that part of the process is that we all have perfect place and time. We're all appointed at the perfect place at the perfect time. And for some of these animals, they are here to help the process of evolution. They're here to assist and support people through giving up their body at the end of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds harsh, and I know how it sounds, but there's also this immense gift. And like I bless the soul of that animal.
Yes.
I send, blessings to all the beings that went into everything that it took, the farming, everything to get it onto my plate or into my bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and into my body. And I give thanks to God, because I think that makes a huge difference in how our body assimilates
Oh,
things.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Becomes a massive blessing. And so anyway, the point that I was getting to with that before is that all of these things that we think we're going to be missing because we're not eating meat, there's a lot of conversation around people being concerned that you're going to end up with scurvy or vitamin D deficiency and all of these things. Eggs, some carnivores still do the egg thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Butter and meat, they're like lots of vitamin D in those things. Eggs and I'm sorry, butter are huge in vitamin D.
A, D, E, and K2. Yeah.
Yes.
All the fat soluble and all the B vitamins, and surprisingly, pork belly, very high in all the B vitamins. I never knew that, but I never knew that before.
Wow.
So another thing I wanted to say too is I had a similar experience when I went from being a vegan to keto, because I needed the bone broth. My digestive system was such a mess after being raw vegan for so long. Well, it was about 7 years off and on, but it was really hard on my system. And I went to bed that night after eating meat for the first time in years, and I bawled my eyes out, and I prayed to the animals, because I had a bit of lamb and a bit of beef. And I said, I am so sorry. And the message I got back was surprising. And it said that we have 3 primary purposes. The first is to reproduce. And the second is to add to the harmony and the balance of the planet. And the third thing is to serve as food for those who are evolving into the next stage of humanity. And I was really shocked. But then more recently, I also was thinking about it. All the Aboriginal groups in the world, maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions, all were primarily carnivores. And even the people who lived around the tropics, who did have access to fruits and vegetables and things, their primary diet was these wild pigs. And so meat, if they came over from Europe and found the Aboriginal people in North America and told them to get on a vegan diet, they would not have done very good. They primarily dealt with animals, and very similar to the lions and the other predator animals. They would go after the old ones or the stragglers. They would never just kill everything the way, well, basically white man did when they got here.
Yeah.
And so whether you're looking at Aboriginals, it doesn't matter who you're looking at, meat was a primary part of their diet, and they had no guilt, they had no shame, and they had spirituality and everything. So but I don't know why this idea, and there's a lot pushed on social media, that if you're not vegan, you're some horrible murderer.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not.
Well, and because I think that's been so deeply instilled and programmed into people's minds, it prevents them from ever even looking outside of that box to go, what are the other options that could bring you health and vitality? There's a blind spot here in the spiritual community.
There is.
There really, really is. And we have to be willing to step outside of our own comfort zone. And I know we say that a lot, and a lot of people, echo that. We hear that echoed a lot.
But it's not. It's easier said than done. And I spend almost all my time outside of my comfort zone, because that's sort of that creative edge. That's, to me, where the magic and the manifestation, that edge comes in, right? So even doing podcasts, you have no idea how terrified I was to start doing podcasts. But I just started, if it's something I want to do and it makes me nervous as hell, I'll do it anyway. And that's stepping outside of my comfort zone. It's not easy. It takes courage. We have huge balls, those of us that step outside of our comfort zone, but then the rewards are huge. And, sometimes we don't consider until we get older, but, do you want to have a life well wasted, or do you want to have a life well lived? And do you want to have your life all full of regrets, or do you want to go, oh my God, this is so great that I did this. I never dreamed I'd be doing that. I never dreamed I'd be this, that, and the other thing. And every corner is a new surprise. It's just such an adventure, but you got to be feeling good to do the adventure. And so, I really recommend that people look into oxalates, look into lectins, but there's so much more than that too. Plants, some of the people are saying plants are trying to kill us, and actually they are. That's why we don't eat them. The beasts that eat plants have a completely different digestive system than us.
Right. That was the point that I was coming around to before.
I'm sorry.
I totally just forgot to mention it. So that they essentially, especially the animals that have multiple stomachs.
Yes.
They do such a perfect job. They're designed to convert all of those vitamins and minerals that we also need and can't absorb as easily. It's not, we have receptor sites for those things, but because there's so many, defense mechanisms in the plants, and if you are not getting 100% organic food, you're also being doused with toxins through that. And today there's so much that's even approved in, for us in the States, like the USDA certification now, like you can slide so much under the rug.
Yes.
That it's like, it doesn't matter. Even if you are paying more, you're buying organic, you think you're doing the right thing, and you're still getting a huge toxic load coming in because of what they're putting on the food, and then other environmental factors as well. But the thing is that these animals, especially with multiple stomachs, they're converting all of that so that when we take that in, we are experiencing, for once in our lives, satiation, nutritional fulfillment. We're getting something that's actually like, you can eat a meal, and like, you were saying before, it's like, you eat and then you're not hungry until the next day or until way later. It's like,
not at all. Even the habitual snacking, I think, oh, I'd like to go and eat some pistachios, and I go, no, I'm not hungry. The body thrives when it has a mission, and there is no greater mission than to become the change we wish to see in the world. Sometimes, though, we need a little help from consultation and support services. Have you discovered that this world is not what you thought it was? Have recent global events awakened you and leave you feeling unsettled? Do you feel isolated with your not so popular newfound beliefs? Would you like to learn to thrive in this new state of awareness? It is a big shock to wake up and find that the old familiar world is gone, and it can be disturbing to go down the various rabbit holes only to find that the information is difficult to digest, and few people are willing to talk openly about it. You are not a conspiracy theorist. You are awakening, and once you find your way through it, there are many blessings on the other side. My name is Karen Holton, and I offer vital services that may be just what you need, and support for your journey into the weird and wonderful. Check out my Awakening Support and Ascension consultation, created to support individuals with their chosen alternative realities and lifestyles, health and recovery, and spiritual adventures. For more details, check out the various vital services found on my website, and be assured that I have found personal success with every category featured. My website is www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Like I really don't, that's sort of the habit part of it, but the actual, cravings, not at all. I was going to say another thing about animals that eat vegetables. Basically, it goes into a stomach, it gets, the enzymes break it down, then they bring it back up into their mouths, they chew it again, then it goes down, it goes into the next stomach, then they bring it up, and and this is how they do. And then other animals actually eat their poo, and so their digestive system digests it to a point, they poop, and then they got to eat the poop in order to get the nutrition out of it. Well, thank God we don't have to eat poop. I'd way rather eat a pork belly than poop. But I'm just saying, these beasts all have a system that works, and then all that goodness goes into their meat, and then we eat their meat, and all their goodness goes into us. And if people can get their heads wrapped around it. The other thing I wanted to say is not everybody needs to go carnivore. It depends, I think, also a little bit on your ancestry. What did your ancestors eat? But you see, for thousands of years, the rich and the elite class has eaten the meat. But the poor people are not allowed to eat the meat. That's poaching. That's on the king's land. That belongs to the king. They eat all the beautiful meat. That's what they've always eaten. And they've lived to be 100. And oh man, you just want to take a club and bang some of them in the head to get them to go down. They just seem to live on and on and on. Well, what happens to the peasant class? They get all the grains, super high in oxalates, super high in lectins. They get all the different kinds of veggies and things, and that's what they're supposed to live off of, because that's good enough for peasants. Meanwhile, the peasants are dying when they're 40. So you see, this is the thing, is the elites do not eat what the crap, I'm sorry, but it's crap, that fills the rows and rows and rows in the supermarket. Another thing I want to touch on briefly, oh my gosh, the time always goes so fast when I'm visiting with you, that I want to talk on, is about food freedom. When I'm eating one meal a day, and it's very simple. So it's either, a piece of meat on the barbecue, or it's a piece of meat in the crock pot, or something I'm, cooking up in the oven, or it's a little bit hot right now for the oven. It gives me tremendous food freedom. I don't have to think too much about what I want. I don't have to think too much. I don't have to spend hours preparing food. Oh, so this year I'm getting my container garden ready. And last year it was all, broccoli and cabbage and everything. I'm going, well, wait a minute. I'm not eating that right now. What am I going to do with my container garden? Guess what I'm turning it into? I'm turning it into a medicinal plant garden that I'm going to harvest and then make tinctures and dry them. And because to me now, vegetables are, or I should say wild weeds and things are our medicine. That's sort of the medicinal component, but that's not eating it for nutrition. That's a medicinal component. And I haven't really looked into, because I have a feeling a lot of medicinal plants are probably full of oxalates. So I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I'm still going to harvest some, because there's lots of people who can still use them, and I'm going to offer them on my website in the fall, where people can actually order lemon balm and valerian and all that stuff from me in nice little packages, and they know it was grown by me in my own little yard, and no chemicals and all that, right? So but I'm still going to do the garden. So but it's a real change. But I can go and spend a couple $100 on meat, and that's a whole month worth. It's not like, I can't explain it. It costs more, and yet I'm spending less. I can't figure that one out either.
Well, oh my gosh, I mean, the amount that I would spend just in produce alone, and I know produce is, generally speaking, not really that expensive, but
if you're buying organic, it is. Like, seriously, like even 10 years ago, to buy one organic red pepper was $6 here in Canada.
Whoa.
And our dollar's only worth 70 cents of your dollar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's massive. But you're absolutely right in the sense that you have like a major sense of freedom in the kid. I mean, let me just break this down for our viewers for a second. From my lifestyle, like what it was to what it is becoming right now. And again, like I'm giving this a valiant effort. So I said, if at the end of 30 days, I'm feeling better and I'm seeing good results, I'm going to continue.
Yeah.
I'm going to see what happens from there. But so my lifestyle, I mean, I have eaten exclusively organic with the exception of like, once in a blue moon going out to a restaurant that might be farm to table or something like that, or an or organic restaurant, which, even in organic restaurants, they don't always get everything organic.
Yeah, they got to save money to make money. Otherwise, they go out of business. Yeah.
But I have two kids. My oldest son is 11. They have both eaten exclusively organic their whole lives. I'm telling you, I would make them, if I knew that we were going to be going out to a restaurant with our family or meeting people or whatever, I would pack them food. So here's me in the kitchen, a good like 60% of my day. That's not an exaggeration. And then the thing is because I was going through this refinement and just eliminating so many things from my diet, I wasn't eating the same things as my family. So I'd spend all this time making them breakfast, then making myself food eventually, and then having to get back in there and make them lunch because I wasn't eating until the afternoon anyway. So, and then coming back and being like, okay, well, and I got to figure out what I'm going to make for dinner. And like, it's constant. It's constant.
It is. It is. You're in the kitchen. And if you're a person a little closer to the mainstream, and I mean no insult by saying that, but then you've got, all the social engagements. You're supposed to bake a cake and take it, or you're supposed to bake cookies, or the kids are having, and you're supposed to be, it just goes on and on and on. Well, it frees you from all of that. It's very simple. You go shopping, you in the meat department, you throw whatever in the cart, and you take it home and you cut it into meal-sized pieces, and that's it. There isn't anything else. I mean,
the benefit for me here is that
save you
my
a
kids
lot
are
of
home.
time.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What did you say?
Oh, it saves you a lot of time.
Yeah. I was just going to say the benefit that I've had is my kids being homeschooled. I haven't had to like do a lot of bringing food to events, which has been, that's a perk. But then, occasionally they're in situations where, other kids want to give them snacks or treats and things. And they know that I have these conversations with them. They know exactly the quality of most mainstream food. They know how to ask. My kids are very bold. They're like, is that organic? They know how to ask. And most of the time the kids their age are like, I don't even know what you're saying right now. So my kids are just very accustomed to being like, I don't eat that stuff. Thank you though. So then we'll come home. And so sometimes if they have that feeling of missing out, they're just as satisfied with me coming home and being like, let's cut open a watermelon. Or I'll make you a blueberry crumble and then I'll use nut flowers as the top, like, and I'm not using refined sugar. You can get around stuff like that to make better food. But anyway, another thing that I wanted to say, well, a few other things, I took a couple notes while you were talking, is I know someone, her name is Katie Player, and she wrote a book called Atheist to Enlightened in 90 Days. So her philosophy isn't congruent with the carnivore diet per se. However, she talks a lot about equilibrium in the sense that our body goes through acid and alkaline states of being. And so we may have talked about this in the previous show, but I just wanted to make sure that I put a bullet point in it for this show. Because that's made a big difference for me too, is that, our body is primarily acidic in the morning. And this is a big pitfall. We were talking last time about vegan pitfalls. And this is a big pitfall for people that are like really, really heavy plant-based and are eating tons of alkaline cruciferous vegetables and all of these things, is that you're over-alkalizing your body. And a big, massive issue is that people who are over-alkaline are not producing enough hydrochloric acid or bile to produce, to break down your food and then to assimilate stuff properly. And there's really important enzymes that are formed in the pancreas that if you're not eating animal protein specifically, your body stops producing that. And that turns into a cascade of issues later on. I didn't realize this. And so there's a lot of like admitting where I've been wrong and where, and we have to do that. We have to be willing to set the ego aside and be like, look, I'm coming into new information. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And so with the equilibrium diet, it's really, she talks about the power of using the acid alkaline cycles of the body to our advantage. So there's some people that I've heard of that talk about eating meat in the earlier part of the day. So carnivore basically before 2 o'clock. And then what happens is, like, if you study Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, there's different schools of thought that talk about some of this. So our liver goes to work around like after the 2 o'clock mark and it starts cleaning house. So if we can eat the bulk of our protein or our meat, whatever it is that we're eating, before that 2 o'clock mark, then we're able to break that down with no trouble. Our body gets accustomed to producing the enzymes that we need, the bile that we need. We have enough acid in our body to actually break down those foods. And the problem with over alkalizing your body is then you start to weaken that stomach acid. And then that leads to inflammation. That can lead eventually to leaky gut, especially if there's glyphosate and other things in your diet. From conventional food, grains, lectins, oxalates, as you're talking about, phytic acid, all of that stuff. So, but then some people, if they choose to eat another meal, which, like you're saying, if you're eating a good enough portion at the mealtime, and this, it
and
goes
if you're
on
getting everything you need, including the healthy fats, that's the whole thing. And so, me, I've had weight issues all my life, and I actually dread mealtime, even though I'm really hungry, because, just, I don't know. I just am feeling a huge relief. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. But I agree also on the acid alkaline. I can't believe how many people are on the internet and social media saying, oh yeah, alkalize your body, start taking baking soda. You want to have 2 tablespoons of baking powder or baking soda in your water, and this is curing cancer. And I'm going, oh my God, you do that to your stomach, you can't digest anything. And people go, well, how else will you be alkalized? Easy. Just like, for instance, I'm still eating a half a lemon a day. I'm not eating the lemon, I'm squeezing it into water a day. And I just feel intuitively like I want to do that. So I lied. Actually, I'm doing half a lemon a day, and I'm doing a tablespoon of olive oil a day still. But the other thing I wanted to bring up that you were going to mention too is this whole cortisol insulin thing. So what happens is we end up with too much cortisol, and then we have to produce more insulin because we have more cortisol, and then the cortisol has to produce more of that because the insulin has gone up, and that's on a typical diet. Well, the carnivore diet, you eat once a day and it raises insulin very, very slightly, but the fat doesn't raise insulin at all. So like Dr. Elizabeth Bright says, if you're going to fast, do a butter fast because it does not touch your insulin at all. And this is the other part I didn't mention, butter down regulates cortisol. Naturally down regulates cortisol. So that's why it's so calming. It's so calming. And I wish I had known that when my kids were little. I'm just going to say it. When I go visit my daughter this summer, first thing I'm going to do is stick butter in her mouth.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's just so much that,
the whole new world has opened up for both of us. So we're still discovering. And again, we're not telling you to go out and be carnivore. We're just saying if you're having persistent inflammation issues and you've tried everything else, perhaps this may be information that you can gather and hopefully use to your advantage. But we're not telling you what to do because we're not allowed to. But also, I don't want to. Everyone's different, eh? That's what that whole biodiversity and bio-individuality is about, and looking into your ancestors and what they eat and trying to find foods that were around 100 years ago, So basically, the animals have not changed a lot over the many thousands of years that we've been eating them. What's changed is the vegetables and even the fruits. And they've just even through, what do they call it, where they just crossbreed species to get new kinds. It's still different than what it was. So anyway, I'm going to give this a good shot. And I'm actually going to try it for 3 months. And once I get over that edge of the shedding the oxalates, I'm gonna I'll text you and let you know how it's going.
Yeah, I would love to hear. I know, some people have been throwing around the term, like I've heard keto flu or I've heard carnivore flu, where it sounds similar to like the Herx kind of response in the body, where you're kind of going through that period of readjusting to your body coming back into equilibrium, and so you're detoxing.
Yes.
And especially for those of us, this was my issue, is that I would go between literally just eating salads and maybe fish once in a while to fasting, because I was still having so much inflammation and even weight gain just eating salads. And I don't eat crap salad dressing. I was just putting olive oil and salt and maybe like a little cayenne, or but like healthy, like things that I was taught were healthy. And it was not helping. And what was happening was I was starving myself. I was starving myself of dense nutrition that my body needed. And so anytime I would get food in my body was like, I'm clinging to that.
That's also an insulin, and it has to do with your leptin and ghrelin. Those are two hormones that negotiate your hunger. So what happens is the ghrelin is the one that makes you hungry, and that's the one that butter completely cures, completely shuts that little evil thing down. And the leptin, which is different than lectins, is the hormone that shuts off appetite. And it has given me so much freedom. I think about food all the time and my next meal because I was always hungry, And but even on the keto, like I cut down on everything. I increased my vegetables and cut down on my meat, but I was still technically I was doing the keto where, like Dr. Berg's keto, where he says have 6 cups of vegetables and eat them before you eat your meat, right? That was not working for me. Excuse me. And I was walking 6 kilometers a day, and I still was not losing any weight. And I'm going, what is going on here, right? Yeah. So, I'll let you know how it goes. And but I'm going to try it. We'll see. And if there's another plan, well, I'll figure that. But I thought this was really important to bring out to the viewers because it's still a fairly new concept. The whole carnivore thing. I remember years ago I went on the Dr. Atkins diet, and it actually worked really well for me. And I was just too lazy. I didn't have time. I was going to university. I didn't have time to make the salads and stuff. So I was pretty much just eating meat then. And that worked really well for me. But then I ended up getting off of it. And then I really believed in the veggies. I really believed in them. I love them veggies, and
yeah, me too.
And all the different kinds of teas, and I'm not much of a coffee person, and no. And then I found out, to add insult to injury, when you smoke pot, it gives off oxalates, and they enter through your lungs. And I'm going,
oh,
no. Yeah.
So is that the same? Now, there's the whole decarboxylation process when you're making oils and stuff. Does that mitigate that if you're taking? So even if you're taking an oil, you're still getting it?
I don't know. I am just begun doing research on it.
Okay.
But from what I understand, the amount of, I'm 67 years old. Do you know how many years of oxalate accumulation my body's been doing? So then when I go off oxalates, my body starts flushing these, and I start getting super bad joint pain and headaches, and my feet hurt. Like I'm trying to go out for a 6-kilometer walk, which I normally can do, and I'm turning around after 3 blocks because my feet hurt so bad. I'm hobbling home. Well, that's just part of the detox. Okay. So actually what they recommend is that you don't go off oxalates all at once the way I did. They recommend that you very slowly start cutting it back. So I give myself the chance that if I want to smoke a little bit of weed in the evening and unwind for the evening, and I get a little bit of oxalate, that's actually going to reduce the intensity of the detoxification. So that's what I'm telling myself, and I'm sticking to it for now. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do anything. I haven't done for years and years and years. I haven't done sugars, or I've been really like you, really, really honoring my temple body and giving it everything I thought I could so that I could. And it does seem to help me on my spiritual journey as well, right? So, so now, you know, I do use a little bit of weed in the evenings, and it really helps. Now I've extracted it into coconut oil. And so I think there might be some plant matter in that, but from basically, I've done the research so far, and all I've gotten is everybody says the same thing. They can't find any statistics. Nobody's doing research on this. So what's getting paid for research is stuff that serves big pharma, and none of the natural stuff is getting research because you have to have a lot of money to do research. So they can't find the information, but people are suspecting that there's something about the combustion that actually you do get some oxalate. But I don't think when you extract it into an oil. You see, I'm kind of not really knowing where to go with this, so I'm going to have to keep researching, because I actually like to use plants as medicine if I need it as medicine. So for
Definitely.
So I kind of, and so to me, cannabis is a medicine. It's not meant to be smoked all day and you don't do anything but lie around and smoke weed. I don't know anyone who does that anyway. Everyone I know who does weed has productive, normal lives. But, you know, a little bit in the evening just to unwind and you know, get my I don't know, to relax. I don't know.
Well, I've wondered similar things recently over the last few days, really, like as I'm learning more about this philosophy and this kind of ancestral way of eating. You know, I'm not brave enough yet to start experimenting with organ meats. That's like pushing the envelope for me.
Yeah,
Maybe
I won't do them
eventually.
either. Although I do buy grass-fed and finished
Yes.
beef liver for my cat.
Oh,
And I
sweet.
snip it into little pieces. I use scissors and snip it into little pieces and put it in containers and freeze it. Just take one out every time she needs it. And she's on she's raw liver, and she's beautiful, just so healthy and just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, but no, I've tried every once in a while, and it just makes me want to.
Oh, I know. I can't just like the smell and everything.
Yeah, no, I can't either. So I don't know if I ever will.
I don't know either, but I'm like, you know, but I have wondered about the plants. I'm like, I understand, especially just being so fully immersed in studying herbalism for decades. I'm like, there's gotta be value in all of this. But I think the thing is that to emphasize medicinal, that doesn't necessarily mean that those things were being eaten or being ingested continuously.
Exactly. And once you put them into a tincture form, I'm not convinced that there's still a problem, you know?
Yeah, I wonder about that.
But at the same time, so far I haven't needed any plant medicine since I started this, which is interesting. Everything, even the discomfort has been quite tolerable. So
yeah, I'm curious too, like,
but let's compare notes on this, eh?
Totally.
And stay in touch, because what you learn, I'd love to know. And what I learned, excuse me, I'm pretty sure you'd love to know too, because I don't want to throw out plant-based medicines. The other thing too is there's some really crazy stuff going on in Canada. I'm not going to talk about it because it's not within the scope of the show, but politically and in every way, things are really, really getting weird here. And so I actually stocked up a little bit on some really good trusted brands of different tinctures. Like, for instance, I actually bought a jar of bitters because I was going to start taking bitters to help me to clean out my liver and produce the bile I need, because I have no gallbladder. I wanted to produce the bile I need to break down my fats. But when I went on carnivore, in the beginning, I could tell, don't worry, I won't get too much into poop, but I could tell by the color of my poop that I was not producing enough bile. But within 2 weeks, now I'm producing tons. And I'm going, wow, I have no gallbladder. Where's all this bile coming from? Well, I guess it's just a good flush every time I eat, right? Every day I eat a high fat, high protein carnivore meal. And then I guess that is good to flush out my liver. So I don't know where I am on the plant-based medicines, but I'm not getting rid of them because I don't use pharmaceuticals at all, ever. And every visit to the doctor either is detrimental to my health or does no help whatsoever. And I just don't want to feed into that system. And that's just my own personal opinion. I'm not telling people stay away from the doctor, not at all. In fact, that's a personal decision.
Yeah.
So our time is quickly going, but I wanted to give you another chance because I know you had some notes. Is there anything else you want to share with the viewers? And then let's pick up and get together again. I don't know. Are you traveling in the next couple of months?
I am, but we can dial that in. Yeah,
okay.
It'll be fine.
Okay, so maybe if you have time, maybe next month or July, whichever, and let's get back and compare notes and talk about this because it's so important.
Yes,
relieving human suffering. This is
well, and that's what I said. I have spent the better part of my life. Sorry, I just want to take a quick note.
Sure.
I spent the better part of my life sharing my own recipes, building recipes to create a book that was all meant to be plant-based. And you know what? I haven't published it yet. And I've gotten this far and this close to being at the phases of being ready to do that, to launch that. And, when it got to the point where my health was still not proving to me that this was working, I'm willing to try something different, and maybe it's super uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to give it a shot. So, this is my commitment, and this is what I've told my family. I've said, look, because I get some people kind of poke fun at me when they see me eat meat. They're like, who are you? You're a different person. You should post a picture of that on your Facebook. And I'm like,
yeah,
you know what, if this works for me and I feel better, I will. And I'm going to let people know, not that this is the way, but this helped me.
It's another viable opportunity. And besides, in 6 months, you'll be able to pull up your shirt and show everyone your six-pack. So,
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention too, you were talking about your gallbladder. One fun note about that is that I've heard that people can actually regrow their gallbladder, that your body has the intelligence. And I believe anything is possible. We've had this.
I do too. I leave room for that. So I'm not going to go and have anyone poke around and tell me if it's there or not. I can tell your poop. People don't talk about poop, but you need to look at your poop. The color and consistency of your poop will tell you exactly what's going on in your digestive system. The color and for instance, when you start to get rid of oxalates, your pee becomes kind of cloudy. That's good. That's the oxalates coming out. You need to know what to look for. And sorry, I always bring it back to the poo.
Well, it's important. If you go to any naturopath, they're going to have you do a stool sample to check, your bacteria, to check your enzyme levels. It's a valid form of analysis, and they can help you learn what you should be seeing so that what's healthy and what's not, and what detoxing is like too, so that you're not freaking out if you're doing something that's actually healthy for you, but that is taking you through a phase where maybe you're doing some purging, because that's sometimes part of the process too. So that's important to be aware of. I'm really interested in learning more about herbs medicinally, and how that fits in with all of this. And I'm even curious if juicing would still be beneficial medicinally because you're not having the plant fibers. So I'm curious just to dig into that more. So that's where my curiosity is. And I know that like in herbalism, the larger part of herbs, like most herbs that you find, people will tell you you shouldn't really be taking them for more than like 2 weeks at a time.
Exactly. Short term.
So, I think it's all worth a revisitation. It's all worth deeper investigation just to see, like, is this going to make a difference for me in my world? And one keynote that really was huge for me that kind of dropped in during this process was I had this experience when I was visiting my family in Wisconsin, and I looked out my mom's window and I saw this bird, this beautiful golden flicker, laying outside in her front yard. It was still warm, but it was not coming back. And I've on many occasions picked birds up and just held them until if they were stunned, they come back or whatever. But I held it and I'm like, I knew it was gone. And the message came in immediately. This is just my shell. I don't need it anymore.
Exactly.
It's you. And I was like, and I got this whole vision of doing ceremony with these wings of the flicker. And I couldn't, in my right mind, like I could not fathom removing the wings from this animal. I'm like, no. And the message came through again. I want you to use my body to bring healing to others.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
I
that was
totally
huge.
believe that. It is huge. It is. It's so huge. Similar to when I got that message from the animals that we have 3 primary purposes, it's very much the same thing. And that other thing that was really clear when I had that vision was that they were in a better place. So I basically, when you look at all the struggles for being even human, when people pass away, it's a relief. They don't have to suffer anymore. They don't have to go through. The world is not a kind place. There are circumstances where it is, but it's pretty grueling to come down and go through the birth process, especially with the way society is, and here they're cutting the tips off all the little boys' penises, and it's just like, no wonder, we're so screwed up, and we're just so screwed. I wanted to tell you too, I'm really sorry to hear about your book. I know how much work it is because I'm working on my own book right now. But I think I showed you last time we got together, I bought this great big manual on how to do herbal medicine and how to make everything. And I got this big book and it wasn't cheap. It was like, I don't know, probably about $80 or something for this book, right? And here I got all my seeds for my medicinal plants and everything. So I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I'm going to keep experimenting and seeing what I can do. And the other thing too is not all foods have lectins and oxalates, but I was eating the high oxalate diet. I was eating an avocado every day, which is super high in oxalates. I was eating almonds that I had soaked and dried in my dehydrator, and they're super high. I don't know. Do we have time? Can I show you just a really quick list so that people know? Sorry, I know we're getting really late, but oh well, this is kind of, I think, kind of important. Is it this one? Yes, this one. Okay, let's share. Okay, so we talked last time I'm putting the links to every show you and I have ever done together on the Quantum Guide show. So it's all in below so people can catch up. But so there's 5 MAPs, which stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides, and polyols, which are short chain carbohydrates or sugars that the small intestine absorbs poorly. So for most people, they wouldn't even notice it. But for someone like me, I end up with cramping and diarrhea every time I'd eat a salad or something. So it includes starches, sugars, and fibers. So here we hear all this stuff about how you need fiber. Well, no, all it does is causes me a whole bunch of grief. So people with gastrointestinal problems like bloating, gas, or irritable bowel syndrome, a low FODMAPs diet may help. I'm going to skip through the rest of this. Lectins we talked about before. So lectins, though, you can soak and cook out of foods. You have to cook the hell out of them. So they're found in all plants, but beans, lentils, peas, soybeans, and peanuts and whole grains like wheat contain the highest amount of lectins. So the symptoms can be bloating, gas, abdominal cramps, painful and swollen joints, fatigue, and tiredness. That was what I really found with eating wheat. Oh my God. Oh, there's more skin rashes, hormonal fluctuations, nausea, allergy-like symptoms, and neurological symptoms just from lectins. So the worst 6 foods are raw kidney beans, peanuts. How many people eat peanut butter, especially raw, unsweetened peanut butter? That's what I gave my kids. Whole grains, raw soybeans like edamame, raw potatoes, super high in lectins. Here we go, wheat germ, barley, rice. The bar shows you how much is in there. Look at potatoes, jack beans, lima beans, peanuts. And then I just want to quickly get into the oxalates. I don't have a lot written here, just a little bit. Oxalates are natural compounds found in vegetables, fruits, nuts, and grains. Some examples of foods that are highest in oxalates include green leafy vegetables, soy, almonds, potato, tea, rhubarb, cereal grains, and beets. Oxalates are also naturally created in the human body as a waste product, but nothing like what's coming in. So oxalates can also bind to calcium and to a lesser extent, other minerals in the stomach and intestines. What they do is lectins, I should say oxalates come in, they bind with your minerals, you can't use them. So what they do is they steal your minerals from you, so you're not getting your minerals. This binding can reduce absorption of these minerals, inhibiting their ability to be used. And for this reason, oxalates have been labeled an anti-nutrient. The worst ones are spinach, rhubarb, rice bran, buckwheat, almonds, and miso. But I would also add to that avocados. So I have a little, what I did is I sent you a copy in Messenger, but it's a little calculator where you can calculate your oxalate. So I put in my almonds and I put in my green leafy greens and I put in my avocados, and it was, you're supposed to stay under 200 units a day. I was over 1,600 units just from that.
Oh,
so,
I can't even imagine. I'm sure I probably was too.
And so if oxalates bother you, if you go onto a carnivore, you feel really good for about 2 weeks, and then you crash, and then all the pain comes in because these are like glass-like shards that got to work their way out. And I've got how many years? 67 years old. I've got probably 65, maybe more years of oxalate buildup in my body. No wonder I'm suffering.
I just seeing that list again, like
Which of that do you eat? Oh, sweet potatoes is really, really bad, and yams is really, really bad too. That wasn't on my list.
It's crazy because the one that was like one of the highest markers being potatoes, I don't know. Before I started this, it must have been about 3 weeks ago.
Excuse me.
We had cooked potatoes, and that was going to be part of the kids' dinner. And I don't eat carbs at all because I've been primarily keto for the last 3 years. And then I kind of got off of that in the midst of this transition, and I was eating fruit, and I'm like, I need fruit. And then that came into my world. But I had one bite of a roasted potato that was roasted in the oven, like that big, right? Not that big at all. And this is the kind of stuff that I would feel when I would eat any kind of grains, any kind of like high carbs or starches, probably high oxalate foods. But now that I'm seeing this list again, seeing potatoes are like high on that list.
They're high on the lectin and the oxalate list.
Right. And so I'm waking up the next morning from one bite of potato. When I woke up, the first thing I'm like, my hands are creaky and achy, and they hurt. Like I can tell when I've eaten something that my body's not okay with, because that's what I feel sore, I feel creaky, achy, like this isn't right, something's not right. And the thing is, like when I used to eat stuff like that when I was younger, even like before I started keto, even like I would have, grains, and I thought gluten-free was the way to go, right?
Oh, no, that actually is higher in oxalates than gluten. All the grains, all the gluten-free grains,
Yeah.
way higher, and they're refined. And there's like,
Wow.
just like so hard on your insulin. When insulin goes up, cortisol has to come up, because cortisone or cortisol is an anti-inflammatory. So one causes inflammation, the other, and then next thing you know, you're having anxiety attacks, you can't sleep at night, and you go to the doctor, and oh man, I'm just not wasting my time anymore. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. This is my own personal opinion. I'm not trying to talk anybody into anything.
Well, I think, it's no wonder why there's so many people that are dealing with so many autoimmune issues.
Yeah.
Issues. And what I was listening to in some of these interviews with one of the doctors that you mentioned, the doctor that interviewed Kelly Hogan, I forget his name.
Chaffee?
Yeah.
Like coffee, but Chaffee. Yeah.
Yes. They were talking about people that are, not predisposed, but that have sensitivity to the point where they're developing autoimmune issues, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, all of these digestive issues. When they go and they try this out, it's like their body can finally heal. The gut can heal and
finally. Yeah.
But we have to go through this process. And this is where I was saying, I was basically starving myself, and then you want to cling to everything. So you got to take a moment to let your body get flooded with the nutrition. And then if you're trying to lose weight, for example, it will eventually start to come down. But your body, more often than not, people that are holding weight are actually nutrient deficient.
They're starving. Yes. And what do? We put them on calorie restricted diets. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the other thing is, when I started eating all that butter, I was eating more than a quarter cup a day. I was just like, I couldn't get enough of it. I was just eating butter. And I thought, oh my God. And I weighed myself, and I didn't gain any weight. I didn't lose any weight, but my body started to shrink. This is the other thing that butter does. It gives you beautiful perky boobs, and it gives you a butt. And I'm built like a white man. I have almost no butt, and at my age, not much for boobs. And I've noticed, oh my God, my figure is changing. My waist is getting smaller. So for 3 weeks, I didn't lose any weight, and I didn't gain any weight. I thought I would gain weight like crazy eating all that butter.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought about eating the meat. I'm like, I trained my brain to think that like vegetables will clear you out.
Yeah.
And meat is going to keep you stopped up. I am sorry, but when I started eating meat, that first week, my body was like, we're cleaning house now. Sorry, I know.
Oh yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting, and it's not that comfortable. That part is not that comfortable, but it passes. It really does. Yeah. So I'm really excited about having you on the show today, and all the stuff that we're discovering together. Let's stay in touch. Even if you're traveling, just drop me a note and say, did you see this show? Or I'll send you a link, or we'll just stay in touch, and that would be great. And then I'm excited. When I start making up my schedule for next month, I'll certainly invite you back, and we can get into it some more. So this is going to be an ongoing story, maybe a never-ending story. I don't know. When it was great if we both came on, and we were all no longer inflamed.
Oh, I love it. I mean, it's just remarkable that we're having this conversation. Yeah. So it's blowing my mind, but I definitely am really excited to continue the conversation and to see where we're both at, and to see, what insights come from it. So, and thank you so much for having me on, as always. And I just really
my pleasure. Now, before you go, for those that are listening to this on the audio only, why don't you say where people can find you? And yes. Or what your offerings are, or whatever you want to say, last kind of sew it all up for us. There you go.
Absolutely. You can find me on my website at divinealchemytemplearts.com. And you can also find me on YouTube under Aurora Alchemy, and that's ALKHEMY. And I offer a variety of services, but this transition that I've been going through has also had me reevaluating all of my offerings as well. So please still feel free to contact me, and, we can kind of kibitz and see where you're at and see how I can be of support and service to you. But it may not look exactly like what I have described on my website currently because I'm in reevaluation mode. So I am closed for renovations temporarily, but I'm not closing my doors for good. So just know you can get in touch with me.
Yes.
Please do. I would love to hear from you, and love to be of service to you in any way that I can. So thank you.
Wonderful. Really, really wonderful. So I guess that's it for the show today. And I want to wish you all a really good week, and much love and light to all of you. And we'll see you next week on the Quantum Guide Show. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube, Odyssey, and Telegram channels. Like this video and share it with your friends. You can also find the Quantum Guide Show and my other podcast called Aliens and Astrology on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. That's www.forbiddenknowledge.news. And while you're at it, check out my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com, where you will find some amazing products and services and an abundance of free resources to help you with your journey. All of the links are in the description below. And in the meantime, until we see you next week, keep up the good work.
Surrendering to endlessness puts all my inner strife to rest. For time gives birth to hurriedness. It all makes sense, well, more or less. And the sages put me to their test. With heart and soul, I do my best to find the answers to my quest. I wonder and I must confess, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion, then I'm willing to play. It's okay.